Hi and welcome to Clickteam Fusion 2.5 tutorial. This is episode 1, so very exciting. We're going to look through the basic introduction about what Clickteam Fusion is, what it can do, how it can be helpful to you to create application and games that you want to create. We're also going to have a look at the general interface of Clickteam Fusion, where bits are, and it's a real basic tutorial just to get you started. So we'll go first of all look at what Clickteam Fusion 2.5 is. So first of all we'll go look through history. So it's founded in 1993 and I bought it not soon after. It wasn't called Clickteam Fusion back then, it was called Click and Play with a K at the end of click. And it was a great application. It was a little bit unstable. When you used to create games with it, they used to be little bit dodgy, but on the whole it was a great product. It was miles ahead of anything around at the time, and there really wasn't many other things around at the time to be able to create games without having to write code. It then got re-released as Click and Create, which was a slight improvement on Click and Play. And then the Games Factory came out, and that was a massive improvement on Click and Play and Click and Create. Added a lot of new features and the interface seemed a lot cleaner. Then Games Factory 2 came out, and neither of those were very expensive. They were all very cheap for the average user to buy. And then they started with Multimedia Fusion. Now they wanted to move away from games a little bit and show how versatile the program was. When it says multimedia, it means it can do anything, not just games, but it can do applications as well, and it can play videos or whatever you wanted to do. That was a huge success, Multimedia Fusion, so they released Multimedia Fusion 2, and recently, in the last year or so, they've now released Clickteam Fusion 2.5, which has also been released on Steam, and this is the most up-to-date version. The jump between Games Factory and Multimedia Fusion was massive. Introduced exporters, so you could create for the iPhone, was one of the first exporters, which was a huge thing to do without having to write any code at all. So you might ask yourself, well, what apps can I create? Well, you're mainly going to be creating 2D, two-dimensional apps. The apps are similar to what you find on the iPhone, apart from the 3D ones they have on the iPhone, but most of the ones on the iPhone are apps that that Clickteam Fusion can create. And also on gaming sites like Newgrounds, all of the ones that you can play online you can make with Clickteam Fusion. Now there is a slight caveat. With a lot of the exporters, you can only create what there are tools for in Clickteam Fusion. There are a few iPhone things that iPhones can do that Clickteam can't let you do. Now there are ways of creating your own tools for Clickteam to be able to get it to do what you want to do, and you can potentially export the code and then alter the code. The problem with it is that Clickteam Fusion's not designed to do that, and the code it spits out into Xcode or anything else that it creates isn't nice, friendly code to just go ahead and edit. It's written in a minimalized fashion, so there are, instead of nice, friendly variable names, there's just letters, and it combines them all down without any line spacing or anything else, so it's a very difficult thing to do. The tools that it does have on Clickteam Fusion cover 99.9% of any of the stuff that you need, and chances are if you go onto the forums, there's someone who's got a way of doing what you want to do, or someone who's created their own tools to be able to allow you to do what you want to do. There's also a marketplace that Clickteam Fusion has now that you can buy extra tools, like very specific tools, to integrate your app to do what it wants to do what you want it to do. So for me, that's not really been much of an issue. The wealth of tools already on Clickteam is normally more than enough. And you can create games and applications. Anything really that you want to create apart from 3D, you can do. So how long does it take? Well, how long is a piece of string? It can take a very, very short amount of time, and it can take, I mean, I've worked on some projects that have taken weeks, if not months, depending on their complexity, and depending on whether you know what you're doing, whether you have a clear idea of what you want to do, or whether you just want to play around and see what works, try it, and then try it again later on when you change a few things. For me, I mean, I do know how to code in various programming languages, and it is by far the fastest way of getting your idea into reality, and there's absolutely no arguments. With programming languages, you have to create classes, you have to really be careful about how you structure things. There's certain ways of doing things that sort of don't work with other things, and you've got to look up how to make them work together, etc, etc. I could go into more detail, I'm not going to, because this is an introductory tutorial and I don't want to waffle. But with this, you just open it, drag, click, create, done, and that's it. And there's no worry, there's no compatibility errors, there's not really much debugging to have to do. You can just get your thing out there straight away, which is great. And you can create a simple app in less than 10 minutes, probably even less time than that. It can be a very, very quick process if you know exactly what you want to do and you've got all the graphics already ready to go. It can be incredibly quick to be able to create an app, and in later tutorials I'll show you how to create apps, and you'll see that it's so simple. So what apps can I create? Well, you can create apps for Windows, and that's baked into Clickteam. That was what they started with Click and Play, is creating executable files, exe files that you can create, that you can play on any Windows machine. You can now create Flash files. SWF stands for Shockwave Flash, and those are like the old YouTube videos and Newgrounds, although people are switching away from Flash because recently a lot of hostility towards Flash and some of the security holes that it has. iPhones have never ever been able to play Flash unless you have some of the very limited applications that allow you to do it. Safari, which is baked into the iPhone, doesn't allow you to play Flash, so it's a limited exporter to use at this moment in time. You do have to pay for Flash, and you have to pay for all the rest of the exporters apart from Windows, but it's not very much. So iOS, which we've already discussed, it's not an easy process, but that's Apple, not Clickteam, that make it difficult. You've got to set up an account with Apple, you've got to understand how to use Xcode to import the stuff in and provision your phone to be able to test it on the phone. It's not an easy process, but in a later tutorial I'll show you how to do it. XNA, which is Microsoft's exporter, so it's for Windows Phone, Xbox. It's not one that I've used. Android, very similar to iOS, and HTML5. Now HTML5 has taken over Flash on the internet. YouTube, for instance, has switched to HTML5, and almost all the other sites have either done it or are thinking about it. HTML5 does run on the iPhone. One of the issues with making a game in HTML5, putting it up on a website and playing it on the iPhone, is that you have issues with speed and sound and a few other things. It doesn't run as nicely as an iOS app, which is why famously Facebook was going to do everything in HTML5 and it just didn't work, and so they had to create an iOS app for all of their applications. So HTML5 is good for getting your app or game out to everyone. Android, Windows, Mac, everyone will be able to view it, but there are consequences to that. It doesn't run as quickly as the main one. Okay, and now we're going to have a look at a quick tour of Clickteam Fusion. I'm just going to go through the basic interface, where to get stuff, what different areas do. We're not going to be making any games or applications in this tutorial, but have a look at my later tutorials and you can see me do all of that. Okay, so let's close that down and let's start Clickteam Fusion. So when you've installed it, which I'm not going to go through because I think most of you will be able to do that, there'll be a shortcut either here or somewhere in the start menu or wherever, and just double click that, and it always has this loading screen which tells you what it's doing. It's registered to me and it's loading everything. Okay, when you start up you get this, it's basically a bit of a web browser. It just brings some information from Clickteam, so they're talking about the different exporters, and there's some useful links to some tutorials, and the getting started tutorials are really good. I'd recommend you have a go at those. They're pre-built games and applications which allow you to see various things. Something new with Clickteam Fusion 2.5 is use of physics, which you're able to set up gravity and have different interactions. Very, very good for if you want to replicate a few games in the App Store like Angry Birds or Flappy Bird or whatever. The physics really, really helps on that. Okay, so I personally will click to not display that on startup. I use their website all the time, and when you get the product, or if you've got the product, I would massively recommend you use the website. The forums are excellent, and they're one of the major selling points for Clickteam. Is that whenever I've got a question, I go into the forums, there will be an answer, or there will be someone who's asked the question and got a lot of responses. I've asked quite a few questions on it and got a response very, very quickly. A very, very dedicated forum. So to start a new application, you either click New Application here, or go up to the file and click New, or press Ctrl and N, and you'll be set up with this screen here. Now this looks quite daunting. There's quite a lot of windows and quite a lot of tools in the toolbar, but it's quite straightforward. So let's go through this one first. These are like levels. I've only got one level at the moment, but I can create another one by right clicking or left clicking on these items here. So if I left click on 4, it will create another level, and I can right click and delete to delete these levels. So right click, delete, yeah, I am sure, and delete. So each of these is levels. Now each level has a few options for it. You can fade in and fade out a transition. So like PowerPoint, you can create a sort of a slide or a fade, or the level can pop up like that, or slide across, or whatever you want to do. These are resolutions, which we'll talk about at a later video. That's beyond the scope of this one. You can create a title and a password for each level, which we won't go into. I never use these functionalities. There's better ways of doing it than using these. So if I double click on this one, it opens that level, and this is the boundary of your level. So the user won't be able to see outside this white box, but will be able to see everything more or less inside the white box. There are exceptions, but for the basics of this video, that white box is what the user can see. On the left you've got properties. Now it's context sensitive, so if I click on something that has properties, that will come up with the item's properties, and we'll see that in a second. This is a little tree of my application. So this is my application name. Now it's just called application 1 because I haven't actually named it anything else. And it's got a little star next to it because I haven't saved it. And this is my level. My level is frame 1 because I haven't named it anything. And beneath it will be all the items I have on the level. Well, I haven't got any items, so it's absolutely blank at the moment. So if I want to create a little character, and this character is going to be really badly drawn, double click anywhere on this editor here. Okay, and this creates a menu which you can choose what object you want. The one we're going to be using mostly is active, and that probably is the most used object there is in Clickteam Fusion. An active is a character, a thing that you want in your game or application. So if I double click it, now it creates a little crosshair. that's given me a opportunity to place it where I want. So I'm going to click it there because that's where I want it. Okay, and you can click and drag it to move it somewhere else if you want to. Now you might think, well, why does it look like that? Well, it looks like that because if it was blank, I wouldn't be able to edit it. I wouldn't be able to see where it was. It wouldn't have any width or height. So Clickteam Fusion have decided that that's what you're going to get every time you create an active, but it's up to you to then edit it. No one wants to leave it like that. So to edit it, I double click on it, and that opens this menu here. This menu here enables me to be able to edit the item. All of these tools here are for drawing or for resizing or for more specific things. Most of them are for drawing. If I click on size, I can actually make this bigger. So I want to make it 100 by 100. Now if I click apply, it will just add extra space, but I actually want to increase the size of the object that's already there. So I'm going to say I want it to stretch. I want it to be proportional. It doesn't matter because it's proportional anyway. But this one, if I made this 200, then it would automatically make that 200. I only wanted that 100. And resample means that instead of just merely making it grow and not worrying about the problems that we'll have with the actual image, it allows you to do something called anti-aliasing, which if there's a gap that's created, it fills it in with the average of the two colours. It basically makes it look one way, and the best way of doing it is do it with resampling, see if you like it. If you don't like it, then undo and then do it without resampling, and you'll soon get an idea of what resampling does. I do it with resampling. Okay, oh, didn't click apply. 100 by 100, and you have to click apply, and that makes it grow. And if I click OK, and you can see there that it's grown, and you can see the sort of effect that's happened to the side of the image. Okay, if I double click that. Now, to get rid of this, you can click Control and A, and that will highlight all of it, and just delete, and that will get rid of all of it. And I want to create a stick man, so I'm going to click the little ellipsis, or ellipse I should say. I'm going to choose the colour black, and I'm going to draw a little man with ellipses. In fact, I might do the line, and this is a very, very poor diagram of a man. And click OK. Now you can see that when I've edited the picture, it's automatically updated what it looks like on the scene. Okay. Now, when I'm in the level editor, and you can see what these are here, so the frame editor it's called officially. When I'm in the frame editor, if I click on this, I can see the properties of the item. Now, there are a lot of properties that this guy has, and we will go through each of these properties in a different video and explain what they do. So don't worry too much about what they mean. The best way of doing it really is just to play around with them. Normally when I don't know all of the items on this, so how I get to learn is I want to do something and I can't do it. So I go onto the forums and go, I want to do this, how do I do it? And someone will say, well, actually, if you go to the properties, there's a box that you can tick there or something you can fill in there, and that will do it. Now, the problem I can see is there's some space around him. So if I double click on it again, I can use this tool here, which says crop, and that automatically just makes the width as minimum as it can without cutting off any of the artwork, without cutting any pixels, and the height, it trims it down until it gets to a pixel. So if I click on that, you can see what it does, and there we go. So if I click OK, and you want to more or less want to crop all of your items, there are some circumstances where you want a little bit of extra space for some reason, or if you have an animation, which we will go on to in a later tutorial, then some of the images are going to be thinner than others. Well, you don't want the boundary box necessarily to keep changing widths. So you just keep all of them constant, and just the artwork is not perfectly cropped within the animation. So you can see here that the active's now under frame 1, and if we had into frame 2 it would appear here with all the actives underneath it. Now, so this here we've discussed is your levels, and if I click on this one and go to frame editor, this is what the user's going to see, and at the moment the user's just going to see my little man. Now the next thing is event editor. Now this game would be a bit boring if you just had a man standing on the frame and that's it. With event editor, it's exactly what it says in the tin. It's to do with events. It's to do with if this happens, then do this. And that's all this is. Cause and effect. If the user presses right, move the man right, etc. There are actions you can do on the frame editor. It's not purely done in here, but it's mostly done in here, and I get in the habit of doing it all in here, regardless of what you can do in the frame editor. For now though, I'm going to click back on the frame editor, and I'm going to show you very simple, very quick, how you can do a bit of cause and effect within frame editor. So if I click on movement and I go down to type, so it has a drop down box, and with this, and we will go into this in more details later on, you can say what movement you want this character to have. So I'm going to say 8 directions, and we don't need to worry about the rest of that. Okay, and let's go back to event. Okay, actually I'll tell you what, I'm going to create another active. I'm going to do this quickly because I've shown this already, and I'm going to make it a big red ball. Oh. Let's zoom in, so I can zoom in using this, and if I hold down shift, then I can create a circle. Shift automatically makes it a circle. Let's just crop that a little bit. Okay, so I've got a man and a ball. Okay, I said I wouldn't do any examples here, but I think it's useful. And I'm going to click on event editor. So I'm going to left or right click, it doesn't matter, it brings you to the same option. And what I want to do is when the guy, which I'm controlling with my cursor keys, because that's the default behavior of when you do 8 directions, when the guy touches the red ball disappears. So it's a little bit of a game, maybe a bit of a boring game, but we can improve it later on. So when I click on this, I'm saying this is the cause. This is the thing causing the event. Okay, so it's the trigger, it's the thing that has to happen for us then to do. So if I click on this and I say, right, collision, because that's what it is, it's touching another object with another object, and I'm going to click the red ball. So that's saying there's a collision between my little man and the red ball, and I'm going to right click the red ball. Now this is then what's going to happen when the man touches the red ball. What's then going to happen? And I'm just going to say destroy. Now there is a fourth one here. Now this is used for very specific circumstances, the event list editor. Basically, if you've got more than one item here, then you can reorder them if you want something to happen just before the other thing. And you can also copy and paste elements within it. We'll go on to that much later when we start stacking a lot of events happening. Okay. Now you might think, well, okay, what happens now? Well, we can run it. And the way of running it, there's quite a few different ways. You can run application. You can also run frame. Now, run frame just runs the current level you're on, and run application runs the whole thing. So if you've got 100 levels and you're only editing the last one, then you can just click run frame and it will just run that one level. There are issues in the sense that if your level depends on the person getting an object from a previous level, then you've got to add some sort of code in, maybe a fake button press or something that gives you that item at the start of the frame or whatever. So again, we'll talk about that later on. So it doesn't matter with this one because it's only one level, so it doesn't matter whether I click run application or run level. So I can run application. Now, the default behavior is that you have a menu, and these are the default menu items. All of that's editable. In fact, you don't even need a menu. The default behavior also is you have a little title bit here, and you've got the minimize, maximize, an X, a close. Now I'm on Windows 10, so mine looks different. Yours might not look the same if you're on a previous version of Windows or if you're on a Mac. So with this one, that's the size, that's the exact same size as it is on the frame editor, and you can make it full screen, you can make it smaller, you can make it wider or higher. All of that's editable, which we'll cover later on. So if I click forwards or right, the little man goes right. Now there's no animation, he doesn't change position. Again, all of that we can do. If I go down, he goes down. If I press up, he goes up. Now there are a few issues. First of all, he can go off the frame on all sides. In fact, I've set it, the default behavior is that if he goes far enough away, he'll just get deleted, because the application will see him as a drag on resources, and we'll just get rid of him. The other thing to note is this little menu here, which is sort of hidden at the moment. This allows us to restart, stop the application, pause it, and a few other things. I'm not quite sure what that one does. So press it doesn't do anything. I think if it's paused, then press play again. You can also expand it, and this gives you a little bit more details of some variables which we haven't talked about yet, but you can access them, check what the variables are, check what number they're at, etc, etc. We'll go on to that at a later course. And there's a few other things there. You can close that, but if you have disabled both of these menu bars, then you need to make sure you have another way of closing the application, otherwise you have to go back into here. So I can close that if I want to, and that's not a problem. Okay, so let's see if it works. So when the man gets the ball, so let's approach it from the top. Let's approach it from the side, and there we go. The man got the ball, and the ball got destroyed. It's simple, but it is a game, and you could randomize where the ball was. You could time the man. You could time it so that he has to get there in a certain amount of time, etc, etc. There's a lot of things you could do to that game to make it much more exciting. Let's close that down. Now there are a few things you might want to do, and if you go to Tools and Preferences, there are a few other things that you can do to the layout of Clickteam Fusion. You can make the font size bigger, change the text size, change some of the colours. I don't mess with these. I'm happy with the way it looks already. And if I close that, something I do is move these bars. I prefer the properties to be on the top. Sometimes I prefer it to be at the bottom, depending on what I'm doing. Sometimes I want it to be smaller, sometimes bigger. So to make it smaller and bigger, I can drag that down there, or drag it up there. Now the only issue with Windows 10 is when I'm dragging it, for some reason it thinks it's up there somewhere. But that's the only issue I've found with Windows 10 so far. If I wanted to drag it beneath, I'd click and drag, so left click and drag this down here, and go to where the little arrow is pointing down and release the mouse. And if I wanted it as another menu on the side, I do that. And if I want to put it back on the top, just put it there and resize that. And most of these windows you can resize. There are a few other things which I haven't talked about. The library toolbar, I don't use the tool. It's to do with stuff stored on your computer that you want to import. There are easier ways for me to do that. I can just go and file import or copy and paste. and the layers toolbar on the side, which is a slightly more advanced topic, so we'll talk about that another time. And that's it for my very, very simple tutorial of the user interface, things you can do with it. The later tutorials in this series are going to be much more maybe interesting for you to see. We are going to be doing a project in each of them, start to finish, and it's just me creating the application or game. So there's none of me waffling on. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. We're going to be releasing videos every week, so make sure you click subscribe. If you like this video, please click like, or whatever it is on YouTube. Or is it like? And that will help us to create more videos and will spur us on to create more tutorials. Anyway, thank you very much. See you later.